You know what this is. Take everything you want. You think inside, darkness inside. So I see your truth. I see your truth. And that's what I'm careful like the rain. Show me the sun. Don't be unhappy. Tell you love me. What makes you crazy? Taking all your and I see your truth shining. I see your truth, and that's I see your truth. Like the rain. Oh. Good morning. As we prepare our hearts and imaginations for worship, hear these words from Psalm 60. Sing to God, sing praises to their name. Lift up a song to the God who rides upon the clouds. Her holy name is exalted. Now here are some announcements for our lives together. If you want to connect with us to receive our newsletter and updates, you can fill out a connect card and they are on the back table. And if you are joining us on Zoom, a link will be dropped in the chat. There is a scripture study the first 3 Sundays of every month. Sundays, Lord, the first 3 Saturdays of every month. And to find out more information about that, you can look on our social media or look at the newsletter, which will be coming out this Tuesday. Millennial Small Group will meet this Thursday at Sigma, raise your hand. And the focus will be just hanging out, having fun. Please mark your calendars for Pride, which will be Saturday, June 3rd. The sign-up sheet is filled, so thank y'all for that. And yeah, so even if you didn't sign up to volunteer, just come and hang out or just come to enjoy and support our brothers and sisters and people and siblings and loved ones who are part of the LGBT community. Session meets today after worship in person and with a Zoom option. And I will invite CK. Oh wait, one more announcement. The service for our beloved Marty will be July 1st at 11 a.m. at First Presbyterian. And the reception to follow will also be at First Presbyterian. And now I invite CK up for you.
Good morning, Evergreen. I bring you clarity this morning. I made an announcement last week that we're becoming a part of a circular community, a circular economy here in Memphis. And there is a small business owner named Maya Page, who I met through the Buy Nothing group. If you're not on the Buy Nothing group on Facebook, let me know and I'll invite you because it's awesome. And she needs mailers and small boxes for her business. But why buy more and put more, waste into our world when we definitely have some to give her? So we're collecting those at the back, like info table. It's already full. I just messaged her, hey, come on down and pick them up. We're just gonna keep collecting them until she says, I didn't realize how many you would collect. Please stop. So I wanted to give clarity this morning at what I mean by small boxes and mailers. So this kind of mailer is okay, right? Flimsy, that's good. As long as it's not shredded and ripped up when you opened it. So open it up at one end so she can fold it and tape it and use it again. This kind of box is okay. Smaller than a shoebox, like shoebox or smaller is a good guide. Every box that someone's brought already is good, I think. We also have bubble mailers. That's what this is, with the little poppies on the inside. That's good. And then there's also these cool, like recyclable ones, but instead of recycle, we're going to reuse. So bring them on down. Maya will pick them up from the church. Yeah, Pat.
They don't have to have it, bubbly.
They don't have to. No.
I get a lot at the store that are just cardboard.
Yeah. If it could be mailed again, it's good. She just doesn't need big stuff. I think that's the only thing. All right, thanks y'all. Bring them on down.
Now I invite for a piano fund update.
We're raising some money. All right, so we launched last month the baby grand fund, and then Justin made this really cool piano style thermometer. The goal was to raise $8,000, and when we had $8,000 in the kitty, we could go shopping, because we know this is going to cost more than that, especially with all the accoutrement, the cart and such. But I have some exciting news. We're only a few weeks in, and I think I've said this, but the goal is threefold. Love to see y'all. Going to create more community and connection in the space. We're going to elevate the sound of the space, and we're going to move Evergreen to the top of the list as a rental venue of choice, which is a great way in the spirit of circular economy. Great way to get share our beautiful space with the community, and also reap the rental income that will be an ongoing investment in Evergreen. But I've buried the lead. As of today, we have raised $7,500. Which means we're almost at the end of phase one in just a few weeks. I'm not going to stand up here and color this in front of you, but I will do that later. It's just like a little personal joy. So $7,500, really, we're just $500 away from bringing phase one to completion. So if this is a gift that is meaningful for you, you can give on Realm and just look for new piano fund, or write a check and put piano in the memo. Ma'am.
What are the other phases?
TBD.
Okay.
Yeah. What I know is that phase one, once we have $8,000, we can go shopping, and we'll figure out what the fundraising gap is. But yeah. All right. Thank you.
Now, please rise in body or spirit as we bring in the light. God who calls us beautiful and beloved. In this community and beyond. 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 May it be so.
And let's remain standing, and if you'll join me in the opening hymn, which is the handout hymn, the hymn for self-acceptance. All three verses. Can be seated.
So quiet. Good morning, y'all. I was saying y'all were so quiet today. Y'all were usually passing the piece and talking it up and things. All right, so while they are doing this, guys, I need 3 adult volunteers. Don't make me call you out. I got 1, Joanna. I got 2. Come on up. Come on. If you guys raise your head, go ahead, come up. Where's my 3rd? 1, Michelle. All right, you guys clap it up for my volunteers, y'all. Yay! So, you know, I love to incorporate movement and to do different things. All right, so today our story talks about being a part of the body of Christ, right? And we all understand that we all have essential things on our bodies, right? We can't talk through our knees, you know, we can't sing, well, we can sing through our hearts, you know, we can talk through our hearts because our hearts are love, right? But all of us have functions or jobs in this body of Christ. All right, kids, y'all paying attention? Y'all paying attention, kids? I told y'all can bring the stuffed animals, but to pay attention, okay? So if you guys look up here at the adults, I want to see if you guys know this little game. It's called head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Y'all know? You might want to step up a little bit, okay? Now, when I give you an instruction, I need you to do it. I hope y'all stretch this morning, okay? All right. Head, you're going to touch your head. Shoulders, touch your shoulders. Knees, toes, okay? Kids, you got that? You see what they're doing? Okay. Head, shoulders, knees and toes. Knees and toes. Head, toes. Knees and toes. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Knees and toes. Knees, head. Knees, toes, head. All right, y'all have it up for my body. You guys can have a seat, right? Yeah. Thank you, y'all. I'm sorry for the workout. I'm sorry for the workout. All right, y'all, have a seat, have a seat. So, guys, that was an exercise of how our body parts work. Yeah, you can go sit with your dad. So that is an exercise of how our body works, right? We're all a part of the body of Christ. And we all have our jobs, okay? Now, before phones, computers, and all type of other communication devices, people communicated over letters, right? And there was a young man by the name of Paul who wrote a letter to actually Evergreen, okay? He wrote a letter to Evergreen. I don't know if y'all have seen this letter, but he gave it to me, okay? And the letter said, to the people who follow Jesus in Evergreen, okay? That includes you, Matthew, you, Mr. Ellis, and you, Miss Betty, and you, Miss Sylvia, wherever you are. You to the people who follow Jesus in Evergreen, grace and peace to you from God and Jesus. You have been called by God to be a follower of Jesus. So it's important that you live so that you show that God is within you. You treat others with kindness and think of what you can do for others before you think about yourself. You love one another. We're all together in peace, and church is one body, and God has given us all hope. All right. Remember, there's one God and there's one baptism. Mr. Ellis, you just had your baptism like 2 weeks ago, I remember. And Jesus Christ has all given us gifts to help spread love. We all have jobs. The same way our knees help us walk or our mouth helps us talk. We all have bodies, right? You are the hands and the feet, and then Christ is the head. Do you know who Christ is? Who's Christ? He just right? So you are the head and the feet, and then Christ is the head. Did I say it right? You are the hands and the feet, and then Christ is the head, right? So everyone is important, and nobody is too small to have a job. So even this little young man right here that's about to leave us and go to Michigan, he has a big job when he goes there because he's going to share a lot of the love that we've shared with him, right? And y'all can do the same thing, okay? All right, let's go back to the back so y'all can get some more of your energy out, okay? Y'all have a good week. Thank y'all. The smallest one is
Morning. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you yet. I'm Patrick. I'm the pastor here at Evergreen. And our reading for today comes from, I think it's just a chapter after what Mr. Corey referenced. This comes from the first letter to the church in Corinth, chapter 13. There's the full chapter. Let's hear what the Spirit is saying to the church today. If I speak in the tongues of humans and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable. It keeps no record of wrongs. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. But as for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. For we know only in part, and we prophesy only in part. But when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I put an end to childless ways. For now we see only a reflection, as in a mirror, but when we will see face to face. Now I know only in part, then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. And now faith, hope, and love remain, these three, and the greatest of these is love. The grass withers and the flowers fall, but the word of our God endures forever. So this morning, we're going to do something a little different. And what I love at Evergreen is I feel like I say that a lot, and that's usually exciting. But our millennial small group, this would have been months ago, maybe almost a year ago. I can't quite remember. We kind of decide, how we'll do a series on this subject or a series on that, or listen to this podcast or watch this show. We were doing a series on gender and sexuality, and the group is really good about just kind of volunteering to lead. So different members will just lead something. Maybe it's something that they're totally an expert in, or maybe it's something that's like, okay, I've got 2 weeks to do as much research as possible. And 1 week, this would have been over at Lane and David's home. Sigma led a conversation and presentation on gender and sexuality, and it was phenomenal. And as the millennial small group was talking about ways that we can share what we do with the larger congregation, this was something that came to mind. And so as we were thinking about doing this series on building beloved community, it felt like, well, this needs to be one of those days that we spend and ask Sigma to lead that same presentation or conversation, or maybe a slightly abridged one. So I'm just really excited that we're gonna do that today. I know for me, I'm one of those confession time. I'm one of those folks that like, I've been to a training and then I'm like, oh, I know all about that subject, right? I don't need to go to another training. And then I keep going every year to whatever kind of training it is, whether it's like a workshop on how to run Zoom or anti-racism or gender and sexuality. And every time I'm just like, yes, I need that reminder. So no matter how much you think you know or how good you feel about it, I encourage you to soak it all up because it's really, really great. And I'm excited for our friend Sigma to lead us today.
Okay, yeah, can you guys hear me without the microphone? Because the microphone's weird. Stand on too. Okay. How's that? Okay, so, yes, like you said, I'm Sigma, so the presentation on LGBTQIA+ peoples, which is a lot of letters, which is also kind of a good point in of itself. There's a lot of different identities within the LGBTQIA+ spectrum, and they've been added over time as we've gone on. It used to be like just LGBT, and then LGBTQ, LGBTQIA, and then LGBTQIA+, because there's a lot of different identities to talk about. There's different flags on this. There's the top left is one of the more original flags. You can't quite see the rainbow on top. Is there a way to raise the screen like a tiny bit? And then on the right, added some black and brown on top. I don't know if you can see that, to include BIPOC peoples. And then on the bottom left, it's got the trans flag colors, as well as the rest of flag.
Just stand there while you got it.
All right, and then on the most recent one on the bottom right here also has the gold and purple circle, which includes intersex people. I do want to give a content warning. This show is PG-13, which makes sure that we've had enough help for the kids not to be in here. It's got a lot more F-bombs than Patrick's going to remember at Lane David's house, and probably more than all the other sermons here combined ever. But it's okay, because I'm not a pastor, and after this, I probably never will. But like, also LGBT people we're mad. Things have been pretty bad recently. And also, to be honest, we're scared. Just this last week, Florida passed a law that equates any gender-affirming healthcare to child abuse and grounds to remove children from their home, and also made it illegal for teachers, faculty, or students to use any pronouns other than what is concurrent with their birth certificate, and making it illegal to talk about gender identity or sexual orientation from kindergarten to 8th grade, which is impossible because anytime you mention husband, wife, anything like that, you're talking about those things. But what they mean is you can't talk about anything gay. And that's very clear. LGBTQIA+ people represent about 20% of Gen Z, which is the first generation that's grown up with it being more acceptable to be LGBTQIA+. So probably a more accurate representation of the numbers of the general population is about 20% of people fall in that spectrum. And so a lot of people in your community are LGBTQIA+, which is how this fits into building beloved community series. Nailed it. I tend to talk quickly, which is good today because there's a lot we're going to go through. But as we go through each letter, I want you guys to think about 2 questions. The first question, which I'm going to ask one person every letter to just like share their thought on, is what unique challenges does this group face? And then the second question that I'm just going to have you think about as we go through, and not going to actually ask anyone to say out loud because it's going to be kind of harder, is how can we or you alleviate some of those challenges that these people face? There's also TikToks throughout this because TikTok helped me realize a lot of things, and also because it keeps it entertaining. So, oh, there's no sound then. I might be able to just my computer actually. There we go.
My childhood trauma. So this is my one more time, yes.
Okay. It works now.
I know some of my childhood trauma. Some of this is my adult trauma.
All right. Okay. So You guys hopefully got one of these on your way in. Did anyone not get one? Cool. So this is the gender unicorn. And then just a quick vocab thing. If I ever say the phrase cishet, that means cis heterosexual / heteroromantic, which is just somebody who identifies with their gender assigned at birth and is like straight. So gender unicorn, we'll get to it in a second here.
This is what happens when you give gay people adult money. They become fucking fantasy characters. What?
So the gender unicorn is a really good way of helping people understand gender identity, gender expression, sexual attraction, emotional attraction, etc. So let's go through it now. You can fill out your gender unicorn, and I would encourage you to do so. Does this have a laser on it?
Yeah.
Red? Yeah, okay. So like gender identity is this one up here. So if like I were to fill this out, I would probably fill it out towards like woman, girl over here to about the beginning of the like arrow part of it. Man, boy, I would probably keep it like back there. And then like other genders, like probably close to the tip of that arrow. Whereas like gender expression, mine would be kind of in the middle on both all of those things. Gender identity is who you are inside. Gender expression is how you show yourself to the outside world. So for example, some days I just wear like masculine shirt and pants. Some days I wear a dress. So that's why for expression, it would be kind of in the middle. Sex assigned at birth is genetically and biologically determined. There's male, female, and intersex. We'll talk about intersex a lot more as we go on, but most people know which one they are. And then physically attracted to. So one thing that's really great about gender unicorn is it separates physical attraction and emotional attraction because they are different. Physically attracted to would be things like sexual attraction and potentially aesthetic attraction, whereas emotional attraction would be like romantic attraction and like platonic attraction, things that you feel like closer to a person.
When I started to realize that all this shit is made up, it literally shifted my perspective on everything: money, time, gender, race, everything. And like, look, actually, let's even specifically talk about things like beauty, money, working, productivity. All of these cultural values are made up, but the issue is whose imagination are we living in? And that is why colonialism is so dangerous, because we are living within the imagination of white colonial men who decided what it means to be beautiful, what it means to be worthy, what it means to be productive. Why is productivity even a value that we have? Who does that benefit? When you realize that everything is made up, it shifts your whole worldview. Look what they did with daylight savings. Time is made up, weekends, weekdays, what the fuck? We're on the fucking floating rock. What the fuck are we doing? And the issue is the marginalized people who have the radical imagination never actually have the power to make that imagination come true. And that is why liberation movements are so important. Okay, the end.
All right, so as you probably know, the L is for lesbian. So the Trevor Project defines that as commonly used to describe people who identify as women or feminine of center. So on your gender unicorn, people who would have more of that women arrow filled in, whose attraction is to other women. Some non-binary people who were assigned female at birth use this term to describe their attraction to women, as well as, shouldn't have to say this, but I said women already, trans women. Despite not identifying solely as women, or sorry, so non-binary people who might use it may not identify solely as a woman, but may still use this phrase or this identity.
I was born this way, and I can't say it's gonna be so this was wrong, you can't all
We're on slide 5 and we've got 6 so far. So, like I said, lesbian is also under the umbrella of sapphic, which includes any woman who loves a woman. So bisexual, pansexual, certain queer identities. So what are some unique challenges for women who love women? Anyone?
Being sexualized?
Yeah, which is disgusting, and I'm not gonna go super far into that, but yeah, being thought of as like for the male gaze and things like that is not appropriate. One thing that somebody brought up that I had not thought of was also like the wage gap. Like you have 2 non-men earners in the family, which, you know, white colonialism always seems to get the economy against non-white men.
Someone asked me if I went out of my way to piss people off. And I said, no. It's not out of my way.
So G is for gay. Gay is a term that is both an umbrella term for any person who is emotionally, romantically, or sexually attracted to members of their same gender as well. But it also more specifically is men who love other men. But basically anyone who falls under the LGBTQI plus spectrum, like, might identify as gay. Like, I would identify as gay because I am trans. And just because, yeah, it's faster than saying LGBTQIA plus.
Vote yourself, don't be gay in Indiana.
And yeah, found those just as I was going through. TikTok does not know I'm in Tennessee. That's fun. So let's talk about gay men real quick. What are some specific challenges that gay men might face?
The toxic masculinity, pressure to go along with being tough. And then as you get older, that turns into a specific mindset about sex and how you're supposed to behave.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Agree with that. I think that
Real fear of physical violence against
sure, absolutely, which I think is probably true for all of the letters.
Work issues, I'm not quite a member of the boys club at work.
Yeah, not acceptance. So also be thinking about, and we're not going to talk about it out loud though, like how can you as in your community alleviate some of these challenges that we're bringing out, or how can we as a community do so? So B is for bisexual. People who are bisexual experience sexual or romantic attraction to men and women. Another great definition that I heard recently was the bi part is people who are attracted to their own gender as well as other genders. So that's like the two that they're talking about. I think that's funny.
Hey,
It's a pie chart, if you can't read it, that says how bisexual I am. Red, really bi, blue, really bi but in blue, purple, really bi but in purple.
fun fact of the day, apparently when you smile, the nerves in your tongue essentially paralyzed. So you can't actually feel your tongue when you smile. Fucking idiot, you're cute though. Look cute.
So under this umbrella is also pansexual people who are attracted to any gender. This term is a little bit more inclusive to like non-binary folks. I know plenty of people who identify as bi or pan and they mean the same thing. There are also more specific definitions that they have. For example, like some people are like, I would say I'm not pan because I have preferences within gender, like I'm attracted to this kind of girl, but like this kind of guy. So it's not like exactly pan, which they would or say is like, just, it doesn't matter. All that matters is your personality and who you are. So what are some challenges that people who are bi might face?
Constant invalidation.
That's the big one, is bi erasure. There's no such thing as bi people. But my favorite comedian says that for women, being bi is assumed that you're straight, and for men, being bi is assumed that it's like a payment plan, buy now, gay later.
I didn't go a lot better. I didn't go a lot better. So instead of her learning that I was bi, I learned that she was bi, but she didn't learn that anyone was bi.
This is literally the conversation that somebody I know has had with their people. So the T is for trans. Trans people is anyone who does not identify with the gender that they were assigned at birth. Something that I find funny is I've heard people use like Genesis as like for anti-trans and anti-intersex propaganda, where it's like God made them male and female, she created them, but like, there's only two. But also like God's the alpha and omega, the beginning and the end. And I think we all understand, recognize there are also everything in between, not just those things. But for some reason, people have a hard time with that when it comes to gender identity. And also like intersex people 100% exist. So like there's not two sexes, even much less genders.
Nature is almost like
That is done.
For me.
Sometimes when people come out as trans, it seems like they change a lot really fast. For them, it has not been really fast a lot of the time. So a lot of vocab for trans people. So here we go. Transsexual is someone who has surgically changed their sex. Transvestite, someone who dresses like another gender. Transgender, somebody whose gender identity is different than their assigned gender at birth. We do not need to use those two terms ever. You do not need to ever say transsexual. You do not need to ever say transvestite. Transgender is absolutely acceptable in any situation that with somebody who identifies as trans, and you don't even need to say gender. You can just say trans. That's the most common and accepted version of that word. The other two are can be very offensive, especially transvestite. Assigned gender at birth. If you ever see AGAB, that's what that stands for. AMAB, assigned male at birth. AFAB, assigned female at birth. So when we talk about people who are trans or not trans, so think chemistry. If you remember chemistry in high school or college, a molecule that has the same number of atoms within it. So like these both have 2 carbons, 2 fluorides, and 2 hydrogens. And this one looks like this. This is the normal presentation. So it's cis, not like normal, but the most common presentation. So it's cis. This atom also exists though, even though it looks different. And so it'll actually behave differently in chemistry because of the presentation that it has, but it is not the normal presentation. It is trans, or not the most common presentation. And we do not need to know what people's assigned gender at birth is. We do not need to ask that question.
Gender people have a gender identity that differs from the one they were assigned at birth. And that gender identity is not the same as sexual orientation. Gender identity is who you are. Sexual orientation is who you love. Some transgender people do undergo hormone therapy or sexual assignment surgery as part of their transition. Some do not. And interestingly, their decision on this matter is, medically speaking, none of your business.
Sorry, I think like seeing the slides or seeing the videos pop up and then I start laughing. Like, this is funny. Okay, so T is for trans. In most scenarios, using the word trans is sufficient, like I was saying before. Non-binary people also fall under the umbrella term trans. For almost everybody, I have heard one person who did not identify as trans, who identified as non-binary, but that's generally how it's considered. Under non-binary, the umbrella of non-binary, there's also more specific gender identities. For example, agender, people who do not feel that they have any gender. Gender fluid people who identify as different places along the spectrum at different times. If you hear the word NB, that just means non-binary. Pangender or bigender, having more than one gender. There's more. So just go. Oop, what did I do?
The thing my student said, Mr. Kayla, gender isn't real, right? Told him it was really complicated and asked why he was wondering, and he said, I mean, no Pokemon are real, right? He meant Gengar.
Other gender identities that exist, xenogender. This one's a little bit hard for me to understand, to be honest, but they feel that their gender is not in the realm of what is considered like on the human gender spectrum. Demigender, someone who identifies with a gender partially and partially with another gender. So, but more towards one. Generally, they would say like, I'm a demi boy or demi girl. Like I'm more identify with this than identify with that, but I do identify with both. Genderqueer is just another term for anyone who identifies outside of the binary spectrum, and even trans people who do identify in the binary spectrum. And then neutralize is like gender neutral or gender null. It's similar to agender, but like really with strong emphasis on like nothing at all there. And I got told by somebody that souls have no gender, but like that I do, and I was like thinking like maybe you should explore that a little bit. That sounds very non-binary to me, but and so as we were talking about trans people in general, what are some issues unique to this population?
being misidentified and being asked, so what are you?
And then when you tell them not being accepted as that as well.
Murder.
Someone got their right beside my car on the ground yesterday, and someone got their right beside my car on the ground yesterday. And they had it so jammed packed full of cash that I couldn't even fold it in half. I'm sure that that's part of the reason they lost it. It was just so awkward to hold. So I brought it in customer service, and together we found the owner, and they were so happy that I had returned their wallet. They gave me a large chunk of that cash. And the moral of the story is that you do understand the use of they them pronouns to refer to a singular person. You do, very clearly, and so does everyone else.
So if you were picking up on that, she was using they the whole time to describe one person, and a lot of people would be like, they them pronouns for a singular person is very confusing to me, like, you know, you do it all the time, you just don't realize it. So pronouns and names are super important to this population, as you were discussing. Dead naming and using inaccurate pronouns is extremely hurtful and often leads to gender dysphoria and the feeling that they're not seen as the person that they are, or even just as an individual.
I don't think I can do for all myself.
That's it. I don't know if you guys read it fast enough. It said when you're on a no buy time, but you see that there's a non-binary squishmallow, which is the kind of stuffy that is. And I actually have that one. Its name is Ferdy. Let's see. So people who identify as trans often go through a lot of stages where they discover themselves more and more and may change their identities more than one time. Sometimes this makes people treat them like it's a phase, which is extremely inappropriate. If you respect the person, you should respect who they are today. And also literally everything is a phase, including being alive. Like things have a start and a finish, but do not treat them as invalid because of that. And then it also takes a lot of time to discover things about yourself, especially in a compulsory cis heteronormative society. So, because we've all been taught that we should be cis and heteronormative, whether you identify that way actually or not. Like we were talking about, like toxic masculinity. Like there's just things where you're like, no, you were taught girls don't do this, boys don't do this. You are supposed to be this way. Like, no, that's not appropriate with another girl. That's not appropriate with another boy. Whether you even heard the message out loud, you probably were told it by just about every person that you know growing up.
I love watching my friends go down the he, him to he, they, he to they, then to they, she to she, they to she, her pipeline. You go, girl.
That can get weirder. I just washed my hands. That's why they're wet. No other reason.
So I cut my hair short just because it's easier to take care of. So in that same vein, they often have a transition period. This can last from months, years to forever. They often don't look like what society expects them to look like. For example, a person with very masculine facial structure, but wearing mixed clothing and mixed hair, or vice versa. Or for non-binary people, like sometimes they choose to wear facial hair, but like to wear a dress. And that's just how they express themselves. Just because somebody doesn't look like what you expect of them does not mean that they don't deserve to be.
I'm a Horax. I speak for NBs. Misgender them again, and I'll break your fucking knees.
Excuse me, the men's restrooms are over there. Oh, sorry, I thought you were. Sorry. Oh, the men's restrooms. No, wait, ma'am, sir, ma'am.
So Q is for queer. Queer was once considered a demeaning slur for gay people. Queer has been reclaimed by some as a self-affirming umbrella term, especially among those who consider other labels restrictive, especially younger people. Some people, especially older LGBTQ plus people, still see it as a homophobic slur. So it's always best to ask or wait for the person that you're speaking to use it. It's just like everything else in the LGBTQIA plus. There's people who do do use things, people who don't use things, and there was no, the council has not met yet. LGBTQIA plus people, so we don't have a one defining thing for everything. But yeah, some people would say like anybody who's LGBTQIA plus is queer. Some people would not say that.
So spoiler alert, but the person who decides if you're queer or not is you. The person who decides if you're not is you. The person who decides who is worthy of your time and commitment is you. Take that, run with it.
Q is also for questioning. After experiencing representation, especially for the first time for a lot of people, it's normal for people on the LGBTQI plus spectrum to go through a questioning phase where they have to deconstruct what they have believed about themselves. And that can take a long time. Like I was saying before, like we live in a very cis-heteronormative society where you are expected to look, act, be a certain way. So what challenges can you guys think of for questioning people? What's one challenge? Yeah, definitely. Sometimes some people, especially in small towns, like I volunteer with Trevor Project, and like a lot of times people are just like texting me like, hey, I don't think there's another trans person in my town. It's like, cool, let's talk about that.
Oh, man, this is a bad idea. Oh, well then, don't do it. It's too late for that now. What do you mean? You haven't done anything yet. I'm into it. Just don't do it.
I is for intersex. Not everyone is born male and female. Did you know 1.7% of the population is born with intersex traits, which is roughly the same number of people as are born with red hair. And you probably know somebody who's born with red hair, at least one somebody. So you probably do know several intersex people, whether you're aware of it or not. This is very different than being trans or not identifying with your assigned gender of birth. This is a sex, so they are born with this sex, though they can also obviously be trans if they do not identify with whatever label or gender stories are about their sex.
It seems like there's some folks out there who need a little reminder that that's don't care about your feelings. I think all this fear mongering around, well, trans women wanted to pick in one title. Don't transgender women have some physiological advantage. What's stopping them from taking all the titles? How do you expect cisgender women even to compete? I mean, right? But for sports, it's not relevant. Scientists asked these questions 30 years ago. They've been studying the answers for decades. What they found is that the competitive edge that most cisgender men have over cisgender women is due to their muscle mass, which is due to testosterone levels. If a transgender woman doesn't undergo any hormone therapy, yeah, she'll have a competitive edge. But after at least 1, but definitely 2 years of hormone therapy, there's absolutely no difference between how cisgender women and transgender women perform athletically. Study after study after study has proven this. I think that there's some folks out there. Right there.
I think she ended that with like that they actually sometimes have a disadvantage because transgender women have their testosterone blocked by hormone blocking meds, and that means they have to train harder to gain muscle mass. A is for asexual, aromantic, and agender. All three of these, like everything else, are on a spectrum. So hopefully you guys have looked at your unicorn and are far enough on that to realize that.
My parents told me to get all A's, so I became aro, ace, and agender, and then sprinkled in a little ADHD for bonus.
Same dude. So asexuality or ace, there's going to be a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Vocabulary in the A here. So people who do not identify or do not experience sexual attraction, this does not mean that they necessarily do not want sex. It doesn't necessarily mean they're grossed out by sex. It doesn't mean that they don't want a romantic relationship. They're often discredited and it's not really existing by non-LGBTQIA plus people, and often even excluded from the LGBTQIA plus community by some who with the notion that they're just straight people invading queer spaces, which is problematic.
One secret. These are all words that we made up as a society to explain the experiences. But the residents will be able to want to use it, then that's why Grace didn't think of them for sure.
So like we were saying before, asexuality is a spectrum. Most of the time people use a cake analogy, but the picture that I found uses cereal. I personally prefer potatoes, but here we are. So your asexuality labels explained using cereal. You're in the kitchen, you open the pantry door, it contains every brand of cereal in existence. Libido would be how hungry you are. Sexual attraction, how appealing each cereal is to you. Sex repulse, the mere act of eating cereal disturbs you, you would flee the kitchen and go watch Netflix instead. Sex indifferent, somebody brings you a bowl of cereal, even though you don't crave cereal, you decide to eat some anyway, maybe because you want to make them happy, maybe because you're just eating what they provided for you, maybe you're just really hungry, or it sounds fine since it's there. But if it wasn't there, you really wouldn't care if you wouldn't go to the kitchen for it. Sex favorable, you don't particularly crave cereal, but the act of eating cereal is enjoyable. So you go through the trouble of picking a brand to eat sometimes. Asexual person with little to no libido, you're very rarely hungry, none of the cereal appeals to you. Asexual with high to average libido, you're often hungry, but none of the cereal appeals to you. Agosexual, eating cereal sounds fun in theory, but not in practice. You certainly have no interest in eating cereal yourself. You'd rather fantasize about other people eating cereal. And gray asexual, you only like Lucky Charms and Apple Jacks, and maybe Fruity Pebbles, but maybe not. You're not sure about that. There's also demisexual, which is somebody who can only find someone sexually attractive when they have formed a strong emotional bond with that person. So like you probably only want cereal if you looked at the box a lot of times and maybe like memorized the ingredient list at this point.
I personally,
I like potatoes.
and I like potatoes.
Wow.
And I like potatoes. I like potatoes.
It's lived rent free in my head for decades, so now it has to be in yours as well. So aromantic, similar to asexual, people in this vein do not feel romantic attraction. This doesn't mean that they don't have sexual attraction, and it doesn't mean that they don't have platonic or aesthetic attraction. It also doesn't necessarily.
I think it really stuck going up being asexual is the hypersexualization of culture. And yes, I know this doesn't just affect asexual, but it especially does. From like literally the youngest age, everything is sexualized. While heterosexuals will deny it, they do. And they make stupid jokes about like, oh, is it your girlfriend? Is that your boyfriend? No, I'm freaking 5 years old. You're gonna get a lady someday. Oh, the ladies are just gonna love you, blah, blah. Like, what if? Maybe. I just want to have friends. And yes, I did end up pursuing a romantic partner. But this kind of narrative made it really hard to have any friends that were of the opposite sex. Because any amount of friendship was always seen as leading somewhere. It never could just be friendship. Part of this comes with that narrative of like, oh, you can't be friends with somebody. Yeah. Someone always be play with you. Like men can't be friends with women because they'll always fill in the blank. Now, sadly, a lot of guys have proven that to be true. But it sucks for the rest of us. It definitely confuses a lot of feelings. So yeah, let's dismantle that, please.
So arrow identities include aberromantic, fluctuates between feeling and not feeling romantic attraction. Cupioromantic, someone who doesn't experience romantic attraction but wants a romantic relationship. Demiromantic, somebody who only experiences romantic attraction after developing an intimate connection with somebody. So it has to be like very close friends before they would like feel like, yes, I think I'm in love with that person. Gray romantic, someone who very, very rarely or infrequently experiences romantic attraction. Or bar romantic / WTF romantic, someone who finds romance very confusing, cannot differentiate it between romantic and platonic attraction, or is somewhat unsure what romantic attraction even is. The phrase that people use for that sometimes is like, I fall in love with all my friends.
The slice of pomegranate in there as well.
You tell me, it's not pomegranate. What do you actually think it is? Give another guess.
It's grapefruit.
So, yeah.
I don't know my fruits.
It said, is that romantic attraction that I feel like? You said, no, it's not that. What do you think it is? It's real friendship. Some people are also both. So aromantic asexuals or arrow ace, and that's the arrow ace flag.
What's your pronouns? I don't think pronouns. So you identify by nothing but your name? Yeah. So if I said E, that'd be incorrect. Would be correct, but so you do pronouns. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if somebody is referring to where if somebody's referring, you've been bamboozled.
So People on the ACE and ARO spectrums are not incomplete. That is something that is really important to not talk about them like, and to give them, I guess, legitimacy. In culture, our culture specifically, we have a lot of diction around that, like even the phrase like, you complete me, like people are not incomplete without a partner. Some people do not want a partner. Some people do not experience sexual or romantic attraction, and they are complete human beings without another person. There's some, instead of saying this, you can say this. But so like, for example, sex is a natural part of adult relationships. And then instead you could say sex and sexuality are complicated to figure out. Give yourself time and space to explore what you're feeling. I actually, at my old work, I had a colleague who had a travel buddy that she lived with for years and years. They're BFFs and they do everything together. They are not romantically involved with each other. And this like really perplexed most of my colleagues who were like very, very sure that they were closeted lesbians, but they're not. They're just people who are in AQPO.
Decided to go to friends' houses and we really hang out with them at the time. And I'm like, hey, what's up? You want me to come over? And then they say, come over wherever. And I go, okay. And I get in my car because I'm already dressed, standing in for shoes, and I'm ready to go. And I get there in 20 minutes. They're like, oh, you got here quick. And I'm like, yeah, I got coffee. You said whatever. I got excited. I'm like a dog hearing the word walk or park. I am ready to go. That's why I went over to text and be like, okay, so like what time though? Because like, come over right now. If you want me to, and then hold on, let's do that at 1 p.m. And I'm like, okay. Because I am ready to go. You can't tell me whenever, I need specifics, okay?
So like I said, PPR, let's talk about those. So PPR stands for queer platonic relationship. So it is a committed friendship that may or may not have some aspect of romance or sexuality, but most of the time do not. They're often highly committed relationships that are really whatever the people who are involved in them want them to be. Sometimes they look extremely queer, or sometimes they look very similar to cis romantic relationships for people who don't experience romance or sexual attraction, but love their friendship and companionship. Sometimes they even get married, but generally it's not like for romantic reasons. It's like, hey, we live together, like we've been each other's best friends for 10 years. Neither of us wants another partner. Why don't we get tax benefits and or insurance benefits out of this? And also, like, you know, my best friend, if I lose everything, I might as well leave it to you. A tetrahedron is the second coolest platonic solid, right next to tucking your homie into bed.
After years of trying to be as normal as possible, I would now like to be as weird as possible. I want to be the weirdest person in the room. I want to get weirder every day. I want people to look at me and think, wow, that person is weird.
So real quick, what is the challenge that ACE or ARO people might face?
Understanding that humans are entitled to ego, the way they want that doing things.
Absolutely. Which is probably true about all of them, but yeah. So real quick, let's talk about intersectionality. There is an obvious overlap between racial, ethnic, neurotype, and LGBTQIA+ identities. This causes compounded difficulties, as many of the challenges that a woman would face, a trans woman faces all those same challenges, plus all the challenges that a trans person faces. A Black trans woman will experience all of those prejudices in a compounding way, and may have a very hard time finding or accepting / understand. Might find a hard time finding, accepting, understanding, and affirming communities. Especially like when you get more and more further into specifics of intersectionality, like you may have a hard time finding Black trans women with ADHD that understand unique challenges that you are going through, or with autism. Neurodivergent people are actually also a lot higher than average to a lot higher than average likelihood of identifying as LGBTQIA+. There's a study that came out of the University of Cambridge that found that autistic adults and adolescents are approximately 8 times more likely to identify as asexual or other sexuality than their non-autistic peers. There were sex differences in sexual attraction as well. Autistic men were 3.5 times more likely to identify as bisexual than non-autistic men. Whereas autistic females were 3 times more likely to identify as homosexual than non-autistic females. So there is a lot of overlap there.
Hey, can I find that everybody wants to talk about ADHD? Like everybody just choosing like random normal behaviors and saying, oh, that's because of my ADHD. I haven't come across that. Yeah, like it's just like a trend right now, they're trendy, so they just like find normal behaviors and like say, oh, because my guy knows ADHD. Yeah, I think all of them are 40 days right now. This is like constant broad people saying normal things are like ADHD. It's pretty specific then. Okay.
That was my exact experience with that.
What's that? I don't look autistic, but then I'm Rainy. A lot of doctors mix it. I don't look like Rain Man or something super, but let me tell you something. The diagnostic criteria everybody says is based on what you do, it's a little to no chance. So it means a lot of people get this diagnosed. If you need depression, anxiety, one of those, what would you never see on this look like? Live around them, non-binary, but I suggest you do it with the times, the spectrum, darling, not a straight line.
So more things about neurodivergence and LGBTQIA plus communities. It kind of makes sense that they would overlap because they're both kind of fringe identities. There's kind of 2 theories as to why that might be the case. One is that people of different neurotypes just are different, so they're more likely to identify outside the norm, which makes sense. Another is that people of different neurotypes are different because society doesn't imprint on them as strongly. So like when they get told you are a man, you are straight, etc., those messages don't actually they don't sink in all the way to their core, and so they don't change who they are to some degree. So they're more likely to be who their true selves are than a neurotypical person, which ends up looking different.
So if I can remember to talk to my therapist about ADHD, it took me this long because I kept getting distracted by, like other traumatic events in my life. So we were like, cool, we're gonna go through this little criteria list thing. And it's not like a diagnosis, it's just like, hey, this is worth getting checked out now. And we're going through it, and I was like, should we do this? Yes, do it. Does it sound like you? Yes. And then at the end, she was like, you have a lot of these criteria. Did no one ever bring this up to you before? Did like no teachers ever mention like, get this checked out to your mom? I was like, no, as far as I remember. And she was like, were you quiet and well in class? Yeah, and she was like, that's why. I was too well behaved to get a diagnosis.
So plus, you might have seen the plus on LGBTQIA plus. The plus is everyone who has a gender or sexual identity that is not described within the letters, or some that are that just don't identify as the umbrella term of the letter. For example, like pansexual is, some people don't consider that part of the bi, so they would consider themselves part of the plus. There's other things like split attraction, so like homoromantic pansexual, they might feel like they are not represented by one of the letters exactly, so they would say that they're in the plus. There's also polyamorous relationships, those are generally represented in the plus, or very, very like specific niche or non-specific identities.
When someone feels like that, I am not a girl or a boy. Sometimes when they feel like they're a boy, I do it.
So how do you rephrase it? What are you saying to
That's more.
all right, she take on that.
If you have any questions or corrections, tell me, not right now, but after, and I'm more able to talk about it.
They go through a couple of years, you think it's underappreciated. Honestly.
Thank you.
Now to the time in our service where we experience the practice of silence together, or as I like to think of it, kind of a spiritual reset button. So I would encourage you to use this time however you see fit, but I think it's would be appropriate to think of the question that Sigma posed to us is how can we make life easier for those in the LGBTQIA community and ensure that they feel that they are part of a beloved community, especially in a time that is so scary and hurtful. I'll ring the chime to start our time of silence together, and after a couple of minutes, we'll ring the chime again. As we share our offering, we recognize that God has made us who we are, and we're called to respond to God's love by caring for our communities. We offer our talents, our energy, our joy, and our money to offer ministry to one another, our city, and our world.
And the choir wanted to make sure everyone knew they dedicated that performance to Marty.
Friends, there is a lot of joy in our hearts. There's a lot of maybe even concerns and sorrow weighing on our spirits today. So in this moment, we go to God with lifting up our prayers, the prayers from this community and for our world. I will open the prayer, and I encourage you to say a prayer aloud. See, can you mind? I just realized no one was personing my post. If you're joining us on Zoom, feel free to type a prayer in the chat, and CK will say that aloud to me. If a prayer is lifted up either on Zoom or from the space, I will repeat a summary of it into the mic, and then we will together say, "Oh God, hear our prayers." Let's pray. God, on this beautiful Sunday, as we seek to be the beloved community and continue to build up the beloved community as much as possible, we come to you as a community that loves each other and cares for this world with what might be weighing on our hearts or what might be just having us giddy with excitement. Oh God, hear our prayers.
Prayer of gratitude for Sigma.
Gratitude for Sigma and all that they shared with us today. Oh God, hear our prayers.
And for MJ and Brian.
For Anne and MJ and Brian. Oh God, hear our prayers.
Joanne, I'm grateful that the world is opening up. This generation has a big job. It's so nice if we can know we can really be ourselves. So, I'm grateful for that.
Gratitude for the world opening up and the progress that is being made and continues to be needed in a lot of places where that progress is being cut down. Oh God, hear our prayers. Yeah,
Russia and Ukraine.
the people of Russia and Ukraine, oh God, hear our prayers.
Mary Margaret would like prayers for Julia, her sister, who's having a full knee replacement on Tuesday.
Mary Margaret's sister Julia is having procedure, full knee replacement, you said?
Yes.
This week. Oh God, hear our prayers. Yeah,
What's dealing with that disaster?
all the folks who are dealing with natural disasters. Oh God, hear our prayers. Carol.
Our 4-year-old granddaughter Caroline's having her tonsils out Tuesday.
I think Carol's 4-year-old granddaughter Caroline, a friend of Mr. Corey in this congregation, is having her tonsils out. You said when? Tuesday? Oh, happy summer, Caroline. Oh God, hear our prayers. Yeah.
For the thoroughbred racehorses, and then maybe they can be treated better. 8 died at Kentucky Derby the week leading up to it, and the day of the race, another horse died at Preakness yesterday. And just the cruelty to these animals, find a different reason for their fancy.
Amen.
Preach, brother. Gosh, the prayers for these for the racehorses and the treatment of these animals. Oh God, hear our prayers. Yeah, MJ.
I'm grateful. My dad's birthday is this week. This will be the first time, 39 years, my parents are together.
MJ, my father Phil's his birthday is this week, and for the first time in 39 years, Marty and Phil will be together. His birthday. Oh God, hear our prayers.
The Warner's big move coming up.
From Roger for the Warners and their big move coming up, and we're going to acknowledge that in just a moment. The bittersweetness of all of that, and for safe travels this time next week. Oh God, hear our prayers.
Everyone dealing with immigration.
With everyone dealing with immigration and for the complexities of that issue and for peace and justice. Oh God, hear our prayers. Okay.
Prayer of thanksgiving for the joyful voices that make up the choir.
For Thanksgiving for the joyful voices that make up the choir. Oh God, hear our prayers. Kat.
Prayer of thanksgiving for Father who does so much and works so hard and does it so joyfully. Let us thank you.
And Kat, for prayer of gratitude for all that Catherine does. Oh God, hear our prayers. And before he gets out the door, prayer of gratitude for Donald's. Oh God, hear our prayers.
Thank God for a week that was full of new questions, but it's full of more new answers.
I am grateful for a week that was full of new questions as well as new answers. Oh God, hear our prayers.
For trans kids in Florida.
For trans kids in Florida.
And
Oh God, hear our prayers. One of my close friends and colleagues is being installed as a pastor in North Carolina today, and I'm really, really excited for her. Her name, some of y'all know, maybe know Sarah Wolf. She worked with Eaker at Memphis for a while before going on to be ordained. So for Sarah, oh God,
hear our prayers.
Gracious God, we give you thanks again for this beloved community and for your calling us to be a light in this world, and hoping that we can do what we can alone and together to show your love and your grace, bring about your justice, to learn from one another and to love one another. And God, now we seal all these prayers with the prayer that you taught us, using whatever words we might want to try on after our discussion last week, whatever words speak to us, speak to this community, and speak to your word, praying together. Our Maker,
Caregiver.
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Friends, this last moment, sort of a prayer benediction blessing in our closing hymn is dedicated to this wonderful family that we've really enjoyed getting to know. So I invite you to rise and embody your spirit as we sing together. I can't quite read the number, Catherine, what is it?
542.
542.
Hilliard's Cindy.
I invite you to be seated for this brief moment of prayer and blessing. And I invite Corey and the kids, they can hear me, to come join us. The church is a family, a beloved community united by the common desire to seek and to follow Jesus, or maybe simply be curious about him. We're a community of faith even when we doubt. We're a community of love even when we show up a little grouchy. We're a community of friends even when we're just getting to know each other. And I hope that we're a community that feels at home here. And for a time, I'm grateful that Evergreen has been y'all's home. And I'm grateful for this bittersweet season when you get to move to a place you called home before. Like every human family, like every community of friends, like every beloved community, our church family is formed and reformed over time. As members are born, as they die, as members are adopted into our circle, as strangers become friends and chosen family, and even as they leave our congregation for a new home in a different place. For a time, Liza, David, Ellis, and Margot have called Evergreen their church home. We've gotten to enjoy Ellis, welcome Margot, and baptize them both. We've gotten to embrace the two of you, Liza and David, and care for you and learn from you. We've multiplied joys and divided sorrows. We've shared this Christian life together. We feel sorrow in your leaving, yet we rejoice with you in anticipation of this new phase of your life, and we will miss each one of you. We wish we had more time to get to know y'all, yet we know that you will add much to the lives of those who will be your new church family, as you have added much to ours. I invite Corey now to share some things.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good morning, whatever it is. Hey, y'all, how y'all doing? Well, my little buddy over there, y'all have already cried my eyes out, so I'm not gonna do it now. But I have some special things. Kids, can y'all come up here? Matthew, Betty, Sylvia. Y'all come up here. Come up here. Come on, Ellis. It's for you too. So, y'all, as we talked about, Mr. Ellis, it was his last day. And I printed off a picture, and I also got a card. And if you have not signed the card, make sure that you guys sign the card. But it's because of the projector. But you remember this picture, Mr. Ellis? You remember that? Who was that? You remember Big Body Roddy? Who was that? Hey y'all, Big Body Roddy is David Roddy from the Memphis Grizzlies, by the way. But guys, this is a picture of me and Mr. Ellis and his dad, David. Ellis came by to see me at a grill. He came to see Big Body Roddy. He just had to see Mr. Corey as a hustle game, right? But I wanted to make sure that we shared this with you. And I wrote a little note on here just for you. Can you hold this for me, Miss Betty? And let everybody see it. Let everybody out here see it. It says, "I'm so sad to see you go." No, Miss Sylvia, you're such an amazing kid. Every time you walk in a room, your little cute face lights it up. I pray God's blessing over your life. I know that you'll do great things as you get older. Remember to always listen to your mom and dad and be a good big brother. I'm always here if you need me, and Mr. Corey will always love you, Ellis. Thank you all so much. And this is our beautiful card that Miss Beverly created, y'all. Look at this beautiful card. It's so amazing. So guys, if you have not signed your name in this card, please make sure that your signature, your autograph gets in here, okay? Because we want to make sure that they are sent away very well. And Mr. Ellis, y'all, he gave me a card this morning and his mom said that he told her what to write in it. And if you guys go to my nursery, you'll see it on the wall and stuff. But Mr. Ellis, this is for you. And this is also for you, man. I love you, my man. Well, I'll pray. I'm praying. Everybody bow. God, thank you for this day. God, thank you for this church family. God, thank you for the love that you gifted us to share with one another. God, we ask that you continue to bless us, continue to bless this family, keep your loving arms of protection around this family, God, as they have travels. God, we ask that you help them to have a good time when they move. God, help them to be rooted, help find a good family up there, a good church home. God, we ask that you bless Ellis's and Margot's parents, that they continue to be good leaders and good examples for them. And you continue to give them opportunities to continue to provide for their families. God, help us as Evergreen to be there for them, even though we are 600,000 miles away, however far we are, but we can still love one another from afar, God. We ask that you just continue to bless us, lead us, keep us together. Thank you for this fellowship. Thank you for this love. And these and other blessings we ask in your many names. Amen.
I invite you all to rise and by your spirit for our benediction. So now as we leave this space of worship to head home to homes nearby, and for some to a home in Michigan, may we go knowing that in Christ it is never goodbye, only see you later. And while so much of the road ahead is uncertain, the path constantly changing, we can trust that some things are as solid and as sure as the ground beneath our feet and the sky above our heads. We know God is love. We know Christ's light endures. We know the Holy Spirit is the breath in our lungs and can be found in the space between all things, even in every inch between here and Michigan, binding us to each other until we meet again. Go in peace. Thanks for telling me.